Hello and welcome to the Q&A sessions with Meeta and Tosh. While everyone's jumping in the room, we'll say our hellos. Hi Tosh, how are you?
Good, thanks Meeta. Yourself? Morning?
Good morning, really good, thank you. We've got a meaty session today, hopefully not keeping everyone for more than 30 to 40 minutes, but a lot to cover.
Yeah, you know what? It makes sense, aren't they? These are the things that people are dealing with, the day-to-day issues. It's not just about looking at, bigger things. Sometimes all the day-to-day headaches that companies are having to deal with. And these are the top 5 in our experience that people have been having challenging situations or they don't know how to handle it. So, as usual, we kind of want to give a bit of a blueprint or some good ideas and engage in some interaction with you all to show you a way around these issues and addressing these issues.
Indeed, we get to speak to a lot of organizations, a lot of people, leaders, a lot of business owners, and we glean all the information. We crystallize what we think will be useful for you all, and you give your time to hear about that. So should we just do a quick bit of housekeeping?
Yep, let's go for it. Yep.
Perfect. As always, we have the chat box. We really value your input, and really these sessions are about you and your challenges on the ground. We want you to go away with solutions you can apply immediately. So please use the chat box for comments or questions. And Tosh, I know you like to talk about how we make sure we answer everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Our promise is we may answer every single question you put in here live. It's a open surgery designed to whatever questions you've got, we're going to answer them. If we run out of time, we'll do a follow-up video. That's hasn't happened lately, actually, for quite a while. But if we do run out of time somehow, this will be 30 to 40 minutes max, no more than that. And if you've got some questions that arise from this or any problems you're having with people problems, workplace problems, take it offline. Give us a ring. We'll happily take your call. You know what happened last week, Meeta, was some of the attendees contacted me through LinkedIn, reached out to us, and then afterwards they gave us some feedback because it was genuine. We're always trying to do good and put some real value out there. Yeah. And in fact, as a result of that, that's going to sort of head what the topic is for next week, which we'll talk about a bit later on today. It's something that we've got a finger on the pulse, and they're headaches that people are actually having right now. That's what I want to address for them. Morning, Joe.
Yeah, hi, Joe. Good to have you on board. I also did a 30-minute free consultation with one of our attendees around their induction process. They'd mentioned that they'd spent £500,000 on recruitment, with very few people actually staying in the organisation 6 months on. So we spoke about how it's not just about attracting talent, but how you retain and develop it, starting with those first 100 days and the induction process. So we mean what we say. We're here to add value. And today we have a poll, which is all about our topic next week. We always want to get the temperature of the room, and we'd really appreciate you all having a look at the poll and giving us your thoughts. So the question that we're asking this week is, who do you think the obligation is on to create a happy and harmonious workplace? Tosh, again, I know this is from one of your conversations you had with an attendee. It's
actually from Christopher Oak, who was there last week, and he had a number of questions, and I asked for some feedback, and he really kindly took the time to give it. And he said, look, this is a constant thing. The pressure always seems to be on employers to create this happy and harmonious work environment. It's not just us, surely. What's the boundaries? Where do we cut the line off where it's a legal obligation and a moral obligation? So I thought it was a really interesting subject matter, and we're going to talk about that next week. So let us know where you are in the room on this.
I'm going to screenshot this and post it, because Tosh and I are going to do something a bit different. We're going to debate. Tosh and I are going to debate next week, and it is really interesting because it's what we're talking about today actually links into this. The top 5 headaches that employers are facing right now is what we're going to cover. First and foremost, it is nabbing good talent. So how do you get good people? Everyone is a little bit anxious about leaving. Everyone is a little bit anxious about, they might not be happy where they are. They've not been treated that well in this last pandemic year, but they're also scared of moving on. So how do you, as an organisation, get great talent into your world? This is another topic that Tosh and I spoke about, holiday. How are we going to cover holiday and all the, not cover holiday, but how are we going to deal with holiday as an employer? We've got this list coming out later tomorrow, right, Tosh?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, people are worrying about there suddenly being this mass exodus of holiday requirements or people going on holiday leave. Don't forget, I know we talk about employee rights. Employees have got rights too, and they've got the right to run the business in the right way. So we'll be covering holiday rights or how to manage those sorts of requests certainly during this session quite easily. I've got quite a few tips in terms of how to handle those things.
Yeah, indeed. Good. It's a hot topic and it's a challenging one. I'm getting a lot of questions around holiday. The next topic is how to keep the good ones around, what we were speaking about, retaining good people. And it's interesting, we've had a comment from Crystal where we asked about harmonious and happy workplaces. Crystal says it seems to fall on HR, but it should be everyone from the top down. Yeah, I agree, but I also believe it should be from the bottom up. I think the word we're looking for is culture, values and behaviors. Tosh, you speak about language shaping behavior. It really is something that is, it should be interlaced into every layer of an organization, but we'll talk about that more next week. But we're going to talk today a little bit again about, how, here's my stat, 46% of hires leave within 18 months. Wow. How can we prevent that? So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be covering employee morale. Morale sneaks up on you. It's a tricky subject. Catches people off guard. The one bad apple analogy is definitely real. One person is unhappy, it starts to impact everyone. And finally, we're going to be talking about how to keep everyone honest. Micromanaging, nobody wants to be a micromanager, but how do we get great results out of people without micromanaging?
And a lot of employers are finding that difficult because they can't see them. They can't see what's going on every 5 minutes. But maybe we just start looking at things differently. This is a topic we've covered before. But again, it's an important one to revisit. You need to adapt now to the way that people are operating and understand what really matters to your business. Do you need to see them, I'm sweeping with a broom, but whatever. Do you need to see the activities or do you need to see the outcomes? So let's kind of focus on what's important to you.
Yeah, very much so. So let's jump in, Tosh. Starting with go. You go.
Yeah, you know what, Meeta, this is certainly, I think, your bag. And, so from a legal point of view, there are certain requirements employers can or can't say at interviews or what they advertise in a job post. We know those things. Don't do things that are discriminatory or exclude a certain, protected characteristic. We know the legal ramifications of it. But nabbing good talent now or in any time, it's a headache every single employer has. I said this to you before, you never meet the real person at interview, you meet the best representation of them. So you've definitely got to be the best person in this room. How or what should employers be doing to make sure that they're getting the right people in the workplace in the first place? And then when they've got them in there, what are the things they should have in place to make sure that they are right and it wasn't just a representation of that person?
Yeah, completely. Well, first and foremost, every employer should have a really strong hiring process. It's not a case of let's put an advert out, let's have some good words about us on the website, let's get a couple of managers and a few people in the team to have a chat, and then we'll see what we think of them. We'll go by our gut. That doesn't work. That is everything not to do. What's really important that you have a clear and systematic approach to hiring, because I tell you what, people are smart, especially the London market. It is probably the most advanced talent movement market in the world. People know what they want. They have very high standards. The opportunities out there are plentiful. So to really stand out as an employer, you've got to have all your ducks in a row, and you've got to give these people a great experience right from the advert you write, right from how quickly you put them through the process. We talk a lot about having consistency in interviewing, because every organization wants to hire people based on skills, on person fit, on diversity and inclusion requirements, and on being able to do the job. But how are you really going to get the right people if you don't have everybody asking the same questions at the right time, and then being able to clearly compare them, truly benchmark fairly? So first and foremost, I would say is step back, look at what the outcome is. I would say work backwards on this. Look at who you want, get that job description right, and then make sure that your hiring process is fit for purpose.
I've certainly learned that over the years. When I first started recruiting for lawyers, guess what I looked at? Skill sets, qualifications, post-qualification experience. I looked at all the things on a CV, but what I didn't look at was the attitude. You can teach a lot of skills. You can't really teach a lot of attitude or aptitude about certain things. And even, those are just, they sound like a bit tree-hugging headings for me, because when you say attitude, okay, that's quite a broad subject. What I found is attitude means, I want to work with people that are really nice, because we deal with difficult workplace situations. So you don't want to have people who you're, having a problem with at work. But also they've got to have things like gravitas. how they hold themselves, because we're in the business of being confident for our clients, taking their hand and leading them down whatever path to whatever solution they're looking for. So whatever the different, the skill set's going to be given, but the different attitude or the characters that you want to fit in with your culture, I found that to be one of the most important things when you're recruiting now.
I agree wholeheartedly. 80% of success in a hire is around attitude and the spec of the person. So use personality profiling. Benchmark personality profiling against the best people in your organization, those that represent your brand. Use that, benchmark internally, and then benchmark externally and compare. Before you bring these people in, make personality profiling part of your process. I feel like a newsreader today. I've got pages in front of me. One of the stats that I think are huge is that 40% of Londoners are considering moving due to flexible working. Apparently, it's the most desired element of a role and of a job offer. And therefore, location is no longer an issue when you should be thinking about who you bring into your world. Look further afield, look at your organization, really look at the outcomes. What you spoke earlier, Tosh, about, is it input or is it outcomes? Measure people on outcomes, because ultimately they will feel more engaged, they will feel more trusted, and they'll give more to you. I've just got a couple of comments from Carmen, actually. I'd love to read out, Tosh, because I think they will really add to what we're speaking about. So Carmen says transparency is essential. Organizations expected staff to identify training opportunities. It should be the other way around, i.e. training should be listed on intranet and staff can then look through what's available and request it. Sometimes it's hard to know what's available, and this will lead to fairness. So actually, yes, what you're speaking about, Carmen, you've also mentioned about clear progression routes aiding retention. So when you're hiring people, they're going to interact with the people already in the company. People in the company are the representatives of the brand. They need to feel that the organization they're representing, that they can be transparent about it. They need to know that what their organization offers is fair. And you know what? When an interviewee experiences the cultural element of an interview, they can see right through people who are doing, talking the headline that they've been given or speaking from the heart. And actually, when it comes down to it being between you as an employer and another offer on the table, what will happen is they will choose the organization they align with the most. And that comes from that authentic, transparent experience. So I have to say that, everything you do has to be really authentic, and it has to be, again, every layer of your hiring process and what you stand for as an organization is key. And we've had another comment about training. And Karen, I'm sorry to hear you haven't been offered training. You know what? The main group through the last 12 months have created a really cost-effective training offering for our clients, because we know how many companies lose people because they don't invest in them. And retention is everything. If we're thinking about the money that goes into hiring and nabbing good talent, then what are organizations going to do to keep them? So Karen, I can talk to you about that. We've got some really cost-effective options, literally from pounds right up to hundreds of pounds and thousands of pounds, but we've got a solution for everything. So interesting.
Well, the point I wanted to make, Meeta, is what Carmen and Karen are addressing are two things. One is that there's Nabbing Good Talent, which is our first topic today, and our third topic, what makes people stay around. And you're right, Karen, the size of the company isn't relevant. I think you're equating size with cost. A lot of investment doesn't mean you have to do a lot of expenditure. There's different ways you can train people up. Maybe that's in-house. Doesn't have to pay for a course every single time. Depends what the nature of your business is, right? So, for example, with my new recruits, certainly for the first 3 months, I'll do an hour with them a day, not because I'm teaching them the law, I'm teaching them the way we do stuff, the way we, why is it that clients come to us? It's not what we do. There's millions of lawyers out there. It's how we do it, why we do it. When clients get that, that's a different kind of training we're talking about. The investment and training opportunities, you got to think about it. Why do people want a job in the first place? I know you're going to say, Meeta, it isn't the money. Obviously, money is important, but that it's constant, never-ending improvement. What actually matters to them? Some sort of business development, professional development. Maybe they want to become a partner in an organization. That's normally how lawyers kind of operate, to become a partner there, or what have you. Or maybe there's something else. There's some other development, or maybe they want to, the opportunity to work in other areas of the business, work alongside Meeta, the CEO, learn how to be a CEO. Meeta will one day have a succession plan. Guess what? Put yourself forward. So and I tell you what, things matter. And they're said at the beginning that these things are available, and then you see that these things are available as you go there. I think what Carmen and Karen are saying attaches nabbing good talent and keeping the good ones around. That's what matters to me.
One of the things I speak about when we talk about how to nab good talent is around your reputation as an employer, and things like Glassdoor, things like Google reviews, things like experiences when you're actually interviewing. And if you do have this great retention and investment in your people policy, they will want to write about you on Glassdoor. They will want to tell people when they come and interview, do you know what? This is what we just did. This is the information I just gleaned from our intranet, which has all of this training available. You know, I just think that ultimately career progression is really important for people as well. And again, it doesn't have to be going from assistant to CEO in 3 years, but it needs to be continual self-improvement and adding more value to your organization. And it has to be about investing in your people for them to improve. So, and you know, Tosh, in our organization, in the main group, we have 2 lines of investment. We invest in people to grow them as individuals. So it may be soft skills, it may be communication, it may be timekeeping, it may be confidence building, or it may be how to do your job better. So actually, there's many ways an employer can invest in their people. And at a cost-effective, in a cost-effective way. In fact, I'm going to do a little plug now. I am doing a free Learning at Work Week session on week commencing the 17th of May, bringing this exact thing to life, which is that training doesn't have to be expensive and it's really easily accessible. So if anyone's interested in that, have a look on my LinkedIn page. We'll put it there. Tosh, I know this isn't a sales pitch, but I just think it's really important that, you know, everyone knows that organizations sometimes don't realize how easily and cheaply it is accessible to train their people.
Have a chat with us. We can give you ideas about, you know, what cost-effective ways of doing those things, or even free ways if it's internal. You know, Karen, you mentioned there just now, you know, you've worked there for a really long time, part of the furniture. It's going to be nice to learn something new. Guess what? Speak up. Speak to your employer. Speak to your bosses. Speak to the people that matter. You know, why would they train you on something? Presumably they get the benefit of that. So sell it to them. Find out what it is. If you're the employer and you see something in one of your staff, suggest some training for them if you think they could step up their game, if that's what they want to do. Generally, you know what another word for happiness is? It's progress. We never get there. You know what? If you just win the lottery, you'd be happy for the when you win it. Then what? What was next? Okay, holidays. Maybe you buy, I don't know, a Ferrari or whatever you do. But it's progress. That constant, never-ending development that gives you that sense of fulfillment. So speak to your employers and get that in place if you're not getting it in place already.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. It's working out what the benefit is going to be to the organization as well as yourself to get that training and how that's going to help.
Absolutely. You know, as an employer myself, if one of my staff came up to me and said, I'd really like to learn this, you know, we do all sorts of weird, wonderful things like emotional intelligence training, you know, understanding the way that people think, empathize, feel. You can imagine the lawyers, who does that? Lawyers don't operate that way normally. So by educating your staff in different ways, there's different value that you create for your clients, for your customers. So sell it to them, Karen, or, you know, if, as I say, if you're an employer listening to this and you see something in your staff, you know, step up, give them a hand up, make some suggestions. They don't have to just sit there and, you know, wonder whether they're going to get the support there.
And actually, as you said, Tosh, this really does talk about how we keep the good ones around as well, which is another one of our topics. I'm just going to tie this up now, because the areas I spoke about, what I wanted to speak about in that were flexibility, which we've already talked about, giving people a sense of belonging, and culture, as we know, is everything. Giving people a sense of purpose. So making sure the job descriptions are right, making sure the retention and succession plan is really clearly defined, even doing a 6-month roadmap for people. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated or complex. It can be very simple, 3 objectives that somebody has to demonstrate. And from that, what progress can come. Sometimes you can go from junior to associate to senior. It can be the same job, but it can just be improvement within that banding. So it doesn't need to be about stepping up to a whole new role, but it's still progression. So those are some of the areas that I wanted to cover in how to retain as well. And training and feedback, those are the other 2 areas. I feel like we've covered training in quite some detail. And then to have it on a continual loop, you know, demonstrate what is expected in the role, demonstrate as an employee what good looks like. Make sure you have a feedback cycle, whether it's a weekly or monthly meeting, and make sure it's a 2-way street. And good managers can be created by good employees. It doesn't need to be good management down. Employees can go and demand good support in a way that is collaborative, but it can work both ways. So again, like you said, Tosh, don't be afraid to take your pace and improve your working world.
Some of this might be slipping into the third topic, but it doesn't matter. It's all connected. Get it right at the beginning, and getting it right during is what we're talking about. Getting the right people and keeping them. Yeah, exactly. So I think 1 and 3 are covered. Why don't we talk about holiday, Tosh? Because my God, holiday is a completely separate topic, but it's so important to people. And yet over the last year, hardly anyone has taken holiday. And I don't know why. I know that might seem like an odd thing for me to say. So let me get a few house kind of ground rules in place. Okay. So you may remember, you may not remember. So forgive me if this sounds repetitive already. So in 2020, the government decided that they would allow people to take 4 weeks carryover for the next 2 years for employees. Yeah. So the normal entitlement for the year is 5.6 weeks. And it's 4 weeks that the law allows for 2 years of carryover. Okay. But the 2 years of carryover only apply to people who can't take their holiday because of COVID reasons. Very specific. So that means one of 2 scenarios, either because you're isolating and you can't take a holiday because of COVID, or because you're forced to work. That would apply to perhaps frontline workers where in those sorts of circumstances, they can't take the holiday leave, right? So that's very specific. Right, so that's the law, but employers can offer carryover if they choose to. Absolutely. So my point is the carryover only applies for the 4 weeks. Just because they're at home doesn't mean that they can't take holiday. Holiday is actually not getting on a plane and sitting on a beach. Holiday is taking a break from your work. That is what it's actually designed for, which is why you can't get payment instead of holiday, apart from on the termination of an employment contract. You have to actually take the leave and be paid for it. So there's no reason why somebody can't take it while they're on furlough, while they're at home, any of those things, unless, as I say, it's because of anything that's COVID related. So the issue now is if employers perhaps haven't enforced it. When I say enforce it, an employer has the right to request an employee to take leave as long as they give them twice as much notice as the amount of leave that they want the employee to take. Okay? Yeah. So if they want them to take a week off, the employer can say, right, I'm giving you 2 weeks notice, I want you to take that week off. It has to be reasonable. You can't be just doing it willy-nilly, but that is the strict letter of the law. And if an employee makes a request for holiday leave, guess what? An employer can say no. They can say no if it doesn't meet the requirements of the business. If suddenly there's going to be this influx of people making holiday requests, it's just not going to work. So, I don't know how you operate it, first come, first served, or whatever you need to do, or depending on the skill set of the people going on holiday. So you have the choice and the power as an employer to make those choices as long as you're being reasonable in how you exercise that. So that's really interesting, because one side of it is the law and what can be requested or can be implemented by an employer or an employee. But actually, there's 2 factors that I'm seeing around holiday as a topic that are causing employers concern. So one is that people are accruing too much holiday. Everyone's going to want to take it at the same time. And how are we going to manage that as an employer? People are looking fatigued, they're getting sick because they're not taking that time. And I think it's really important for employers to utilize the point that Tosh made about you can enforce it, but to say to employees, look, we're nearly halfway through the year. Really, you should have taken half your holiday, because it's not just about sitting on a beach. It is about your health and well-being. And as an employer, it's our duty of care to make sure that you have that environment. Is that a fair approach? Absolutely right. And without it sounding patronizing, there's a different mindset from an employee and an employer. So the employer is a little bit like the parent, and the employee, as I say, without sounding patronizing, which I'm sounding now, and the employee is like the child. So they're not necessarily looking at it from the perspective of the employer. So it's not that I'm saying, right, you're taking your holiday now. The word I think that Carmen used earlier was transparency. Yeah, absolutely, in everything we do. Tell them what. Tell them why. Yeah. Tell them why are we doing this? This is why we need to help the business. If employees are then challenging that is perhaps where you can make a decision whether you want to take a hard line or not. Because we had this discussion before we started this going live about, companies or employers sometimes indulging employees sometimes, and they should really know where the line is. And a little bit, again, like parenting, you've got to know what the boundaries are. It's not just anything goes for the kids, you've got to know what the rules are, what the disciplines are, and they know what the rules are. Yeah, I had a big sigh there, because I actually think that COVID presented, 2020 presented one set of challenges. But as employers are coming out of this time and people are going back to work, actually,
they're at an equal level of challenges, but in a different way. And so much stress and anxiety is being demonstrated by employees that I think it's really important for employees to use holiday and time away from work as a tool to help manage that. I think it's really key, because people come back and actually it has to be from the top down. I demonstrated that by taking a week out. I didn't pick up my phone. I tried to keep busy with the kids. It was Easter, and I found it really hard, because usually what keeps me from working is a change of time zone or being in the water so I can't be on my phone, things like that. But how do you disconnect when you're still in and around your office working from home? But
word is balance, isn't it, Meeta? The word is balance. Like anything, it's taking all the different factors into account, but ultimately, as an employer, you have the final say. So how you're delivering that and how you're choosing to enforce that or discuss that is what makes the difference.
Yeah, and I think the other big issue around holiday is that people are submitting for holiday. 50% more bookings have happened this week than last week from Thomas Cook. That's their statistic. But the government haven't revealed their green list yet. So there could be all kinds of toing and froing, people booking time, people cancelling time. But what about things like, if somebody books a holiday, goes abroad, they're on a green list, whilst they're out there, it becomes a red list, and then they have to quarantine. How would an employer deal with that? I know it's not on our plates now, but it's coming. Like, what can employers do to put some policy and structure in place so employees know the boundaries of this?
We can exercise some common sense. And what I mean by that is prepare for it. If it's the kind of job that can work remotely, make sure they take their equipment with them, whatever that might mean. Most people, that will be a laptop and a phone, right? And make sure they've got a good internet connection where they are. If the circumstances are such that they can't work, well, then they can't work. There'll have to be an arrangement with that employee, whatever that might be. In any other normal circumstances, they won't receive pay because they're not being able to work. That is the reality of it. I think employers won't take that hard line, but that is what they could do.
Or taking more holiday.
Correct. The rules are effectively an employee's got to be ready, willing, and able to work. So if they're going to put themselves into that situation, particularly in the current climate where that's a reality, a real possibility, then, prepare for it so that it doesn't make much of a difference. And then if it does make a difference, well, then the employer's got to make some decisions of whether they're paying them, taking them more holiday, or whatever cover they might put in place, maybe put them in furlough.
Okay, so it's funny because usually I'm more carrot and you're more stick, but I'm taking the stick line here today. Could an employer say no overseas holidays in 2021 employees? Could they have that as a rule?
Just the word I'm going to say.
Reasonable.
I know, I'm sorry, it sounds like such a cop-out, but it's not. It really is. It's what reasonable is. What can you justify? How do you justify the decision you're making in the circumstances? So if you are saying to them, look, this is the circumstances, this is what I'm worried about. As a result of that, we're going to put a veto on any kind of holidays for this time being, abroad or whatever else it is. Maybe you can do it in the UK, obviously, perhaps, but that's it. That's reasonable as long as you've got reasons to justify your decision.
Yeah, I'm playing devil's advocate and I'm pushing the point because I do think there's going to be a lot of challenges around, a holiday and people's requests. And for some reason, my phone is buzzing at me. Sorry about that.
Don't they know you're live? No, you're right. But as I say, I don't want employers to be scared about it. They need to know what their strengths are and the power that they've got in the situation, and then choose how they want to communicate that with their staff. So don't be worried if suddenly everybody comes in. It just needs to be managed.
Yeah, and coming full circle, I'm all about communication. You get transparency, you get clarity in your communication, you give everyone the why of any policy, the benefits to the company and to the individuals and the reasons. Usually, the majority of your employees will understand and work within that. So
the why is, I would expect the why to be the most important thing. You're more likely to get your desired outcome in whatever situation if you explain your why, whether that's negotiations or discussions with your staff or with your other half. The more they understand your reasoning behind it, the more likely to buy in with what it is you're trying to do, right? As long as it's reasonable.
Completely. So anything else we need to cover around holiday, or shall we move?
That's really it. If you are having a difficult situation, you still don't know what to do about it, as I said, take it offline, give us a call.
Yeah, or put a comment in the box. And if you haven't put your thoughts on the poll, please do. We're going to publish these results afterwards. They're very interesting. So far, 69% of you think that the obligation is on management to create a harmonious and happy workplace. Nobody has said that the employees hold any responsibility, which is interesting.
Can't wait to shake that up next week.
7% say HR, 15% say CEO, and then we have an other as well, and a few comments in the chat box as well. I've got a comment here from Carmen. I'm just going to have a quick read of it. So Carmen says remote working in situations where staff are working from abroad can have GDPR compliance issues, and this is a huge consideration if staff are caught abroad. Yeah, indeed, Tosh. How would we deal with that?
Oh, that's a whole other complicated area of law. So, for example, we had a situation with one of our staff being abroad. We've got encryption software. Yeah, we have to as a law firm. So for us, we don't have that as an issue. Whether it's a Dropbox type of scenario or whatever the situation is, you just need to make sure that your information isn't something that can be accessed without the correct systems in place. So if you are having, it's an IT issue, I think, more than anything else, Carmen, to make sure that, or however that's being processed, how that data is being processed, is being done lawfully and in the correct way. If you're having trouble with those sorts of problems, I can help you from a more detailed legal conversation, but actually I can probably put you in touch with people that cover that exact type of scenario. Our own IT suppliers, for example, have given us all that kind of software. So I can certainly introduce you if that's a problem you've got.
Yeah, I think there's always a way. And I think that the organisation needs to establish whether it's better to have that person working or whether they can afford to have them out for 2 weeks, unpaid or holiday or whatever agreement you have in place.
Yep, totally.
Okay. Well, I think we definitely covered off number 1 and number 3. Number 1 being about how to attract talent and number 3 about how to retain talent. But actually, number 4 was all around improving employee morale. And that in and of itself is still about retaining, isn't it? Because ultimately, happy and engaged employees are more productive. That is the number 1 equation that every people leader needs to have up there on the wall. Engaged employees are productive employees, which equals a successful environment. And that's what we want. That's what we're all trying to achieve as business leaders and people leaders.
There's a phrase somebody said to me today, actually, I quite liked it. And it was, the fish rots from the head down. And I think the idea was get your culture right, get an understanding of what it is you're trying to do. Why does employee morale matter? If you have a real understanding of what that's about, you'll see why. Take the temperature of what it's like in the workplace. What have you got in place to know, that your finger's on the pulse and what matters to your people? What are the opportunities you're putting out there? What's the way that you recognize what employees are doing? Are you paying them enough? What is it that you're doing to invest in them? Cameron was mentioned earlier about feeling like part of the furniture, but I'd like to learn some more stuff. Yeah. And guess what? The way to do it is, again, back to what Carmen said. Transparent, open conversations. We ask them. You don't need to guess. Ask them what matters. It doesn't mean they do everything, but at least you know what drives them.
Exactly. And you'd be surprised that actually what really matters to people isn't costly. It's at the moment, flexibility, as we spoke, is big. Culture is everything. Working with like-minded people, being shoulder to shoulder with people who hold the same value system. That way, when you're dealing with a challenge, you understand where the other person's coming from. I'm a big believer in doing not only personality testing, but we do a lot around team fit and learning styles. You look at a team, you understand that one person loves to be the center of attention. No surprise, I like to put my hand up and always give you up.
It's all about you.
Yeah, well, and there are other people sitting right next to that person who would literally shrivel up and want to die if someone called them out to say, what do you think? So it's important for teammates to understand each other as much as it is for a manager to understand a teammate. So make sure you do these exercises. We are doing these exercises at real, cost value, really, really reasonable prices, because ultimately a team that understand each other, a team that know each other will be a team that engage better. If you get the team right, then they will become more productive and they'll all face in the same direction. And we know about people rowing a boat, right? If some are rowing that way, some are rowing that way, they're just going to go in a circle. But you get everyone facing and rowing in the same direction on the same rhythm, you're winning that boat race. And I love my stats, but these stats are frightening. globally, only 15% of employees are engaged, 67% are neutral, not engaged or positive, but actually 20% are disengaged, which means that you are getting people that aren't really, you're only getting 15% of your employees wanting to be doing their best, wanting to be creative, inspired. And, you know, it's the bad apple, the rotting from the head, whatever it is. You're not getting the right return on your investment as an employer. And actually, employee burnout has risen by 25% in online Google reviews. So recognize the symptoms, ask the question, ensure that you've got a well-being policy, you know, encourage people to take breaks, encourage the transparency. Again, Carmen's word is coming up. Talk about annual leave, talk about flexibility and support, create a mental health first aider. All of these things are really important, and have a policy around out of hours emails. Little things like that will make all the difference. None of that has so far cost any money. So actually you can fix the engagement and productivity challenge with some good policies. And again, if you want us to help you write that policy, if you want us to help you get some good ideas in place, give me a call, give Tosh a call. And if you want to make sure that your culture is aligned and lived, it's not just words on a page, it's not, you know, it's not just something that's on your website, but it's actually lived and breathed by the people, then again, I've got some great exercises for that, because culture is everything. They say culture eats strategy for breakfast. You get that right, people will take your strategy and drive it well ahead of where you would have even thought it would reach. So
absolutely right. Aligning them with the goals, with the company strategy, you know, communication going the right direction. That's a winning formula. The other thing I would say, which I think people won't think of it in a good way necessarily, is performance management. Performance management doesn't mean disciplinary. Performance management means exactly those two words. You know, people are not performing. Talk to them. Figure out how you can help them. What are they doing? You know, sometimes they need that guidance, especially when we're talking about people feeling isolated, and you know, well-being has been the buzzword, and mental health has been the buzzword for the last 12 months, 18 months. You know, understand how to manage those difficult work problems that people are having. So performance management is also, you know, again, that's kind of aligned with the goals of the company. They're more likely to be motivated, more like they know that you as an employer have got their back, and that's what they want. They want to know that they've got that support to achieve whatever it is they want to get to, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And in fact, this leads right into our last topic with 3 minutes to go. So keeping everyone honest. Again, everything leads back to engagement and productivity. Micromanaging is bad. It's bad for business. It's bad for bosses. Employees don't like it. It makes it all about it's all about we as an employer are the only ones that matter in this journey. And really what we want to do is empower our people to feel that they have the tools and the trust to go forth and deliver what's expected of them.
I think that's the problem, Meeta. You know, I certainly had a lot of company clients that came to me with this issue, and I'll just cover it very quickly. And you know, and they were just saying, "Look, I don't know what they're doing," or whatever else it was. And the idea was, which I mentioned earlier, was, well, stop looking at activities and start looking at the outputs that you want. Whether that's a target, if those output measurements are not being met, that's a conversation that we just talked about for performance management. That's when you need to talk about what needs to happen, and then let them know what you're expecting them to do. And you're looking at these outputs or these things that you're measuring. Then that micromanagement doesn't become an issue. And obviously, if they're not stepping up, well, then you go back to other types of ways to help them step up, where the informal doesn't work, or where the appraisals don't work. You might need to take some sort of formal performance management or disciplinary action if they're still not stepping up. But it's having that transparent, open conversation with them about what you want, why, and how.
Yeah. So I believe it all starts with the job description. If you don't want to micromanage, use the job description as a tool for clarifying what good looks like and what's expected. Revisit it when you onboard. Revisit it for those first 100 days. Make it the Bible of how are you doing on that job description? How are you achieving? And make sure that the person's fit, the spec of the individual, and the attitude is all there. Don't just look at the tasks. Encourage and celebrate when they align culturally as well as when they do their job well. So they understand that that is important. Give them clarity and then be consistent. You know, have a weekly touch point, a bi-monthly touch point, whatever it is. Honor that time with that individual. Let them know they're important to you. If they feel important, they will want to step up and do a good job.
Yep.
Culture. Again, everything around culture. cultural exercises. We do an annual kickoff where we do pizzas and bubbles, and we talk about the year ahead. We talk about what we want to give our employees, and we talk about what's expected back, and we talk about what we're all reaching for as a unit. So you can do that at business level, which is a bit like a conference, or you can do it at individual team level, which can be a very informal kickoff. But the message is that everyone has to be on the same page. And then you agree what good looks like, and you as a manager just get to do consistent touch points. And then tell them what the benefits of this is. Give them a roadmap for career progression. Give them clarity on what that means. Not just, hey, you'll have been given a pat on the back for a good job, but if you achieve this, this is where the business goes, and this is what opportunities will then be in the organization for the future. So everyone's a winner, right?
Absolutely. It's just getting your mindset right, where you're trying to get to and how you get them there, right? That is the quickest way I could say it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, summing it up doesn't give anyone the actual step-by-step of how to do it. So again, we've got a blueprint on all of these. We've got what we believe is the best way how from our collective 40 years in talent management and support, and the legalities around it as well. So it's a whistle stop as always. Some really great comments from everyone today and your insight. Thank you. We have hit our 40 minutes. I'm really just going to end this poll, publish those results for everyone to see, and let you know that we'll be talking more about this topic same time next week, 11 a.m. on Thursday.
And the final thing I just want to say is, I've said this every single week, connect with us on LinkedIn. Meeta and I put our own stuff out there as well on our different LinkedIn profiles. Lots of super helpful tips and in things that will help you with the business. So connect with us.
Indeed. Thank you, everyone. Good to see you. And
everybody.
bye-bye.
See you next week. Bye-bye.